AI is incredible. It can teach you how to fry an egg and even write a poem, pirate style. Yarr! But it knows nothing about your work. Slackbot is different. It doesn't just know the facts. It knows your schedule. It can turn a brainstorm into a brief. And it doesn't need to be taught. Because Slackbot isn't just another AI. It's AI that knows your work as well as you do. Visit slack.com/meet Slackbot to learn more.
This is Bridges Burned with Megan and Amy.
We already paid the price for telling the truth, so now nothing is off limits.
The bridges are behind us, and we're on the other side of the fire.
Sandy Sharkey built a successful career in radio known for her authentic voice and ability to connect with the audience. After an unexpected departure from the industry, she embraced a new path rooted in a lifelong love of horses. Today, Sandy is a world-renowned equine photographer celebrated for capturing the beauty and power of the spirit of horses. She is also a dedicated advocate using her work and platform to promote horse welfare and deepen the connection between humans and these remarkable animals, and is one of my mentors. Please welcome Sandy Sharkey.
Hi. So wonderful to be with you guys today.
Yeah, thank you so much for talking to us. So let's just kind of start from the beginning. You had a successful career in radio. What actually happened with that? Why did it end and what happened after that?
Well, I think that the way that my career ended is unfortunately the way that a lot of people's career ends in radio, which is show of hands in the room. So essentially you stick around for so long that eventually, your salary reflects how long you've been doing the work, right? So I was in a wonderful position to be on the morning show and some of the perks that come with that. And while I did outlast, I think 7 male co-hosts.
Wow.
I can't really. I'm actually trying to recall how many. I think it was 7. So I do have that feather in my cap that I had outlasted all those men. But eventually, I knew the writing was on the wall for me. And a lot of it is, I think we tend to beat ourselves up for it and wonder, where did we go wrong? What did we do that was wrong, or could we have changed anything? But overall, I believe it's also quite a reflection on the industry itself. And how difficult it is for revenue streams to come in now. And so they have to look at people to cut, and they tend to go after the people that have been long serving. And that's kind of what happened to me, because I was there for like 100 years. So. So I don't beat myself up over it too much, though. I really had a great time while I was working in radio.
Did you feel like you lost your identity? Did you want to get back into radio, or were you just kind of like, this is a new chapter?
I understand that is an issue with many, many radio announcers that because, let's face it, you're working in the entertainment industry. It's a pretty great job. And you do get a name that, the community might know your name when you're out doing a lot of events and of course, being on the morning show and things like that. But I was so aware of that happening that I worked really hard to make sure it didn't happen to me. So I concurrently, while I was working in radio, I concurrently started to develop another life that was going to be there waiting for me when my job ended. So I could seamlessly go into my next life, which is pretty much what I did. And so I found that to be the best way for me to do it. I don't know if that's the best way for everyone. But for me, I didn't look back. I was aware that my career in radio was going to come to an end. I just knew the pressures around me. So for probably about the 6 years before I actually lost my job, I worked really hard at honing my skills with photography and raising awareness for things that meant a lot to me. So that when my job was over, I just instantly said, okay, on to the next great thing.
I think a lot of people in radio do that too. I was doing that as well. And people would always say, why do you have so many jobs? Why do you have so much going on? You're always so busy. And I was like, because I know, like, I could get fired any day. And if I do, what am I going to do financially?
Exactly. Yeah. Well, yeah. I think that, probably moving forward, more and more radio announcers probably do that. I hope so anyway, because it's a really, it's kind of unfortunate in a way that that your career in radio is fleeting. Um, but if you look at it that way and it's not going to be forever, then it's a really good idea to make sure you have something to fall back on.
Do you ever miss it?
I do. I think most of all, I miss the connection with the community. I miss having that sort of megaphone where you could help when help was needed in the community. It was a really great career for me to learn the importance of community. And I'm always going to be thankful for that and learning communication skills because that's a big part of what I do today too. So it was fantastic to have that experience behind me and moving forward into my new career. But I think that that's probably the part that I miss the most. It's if there was, let's say, you guys know this too, the power of radio. Let's say there was a fire overnight in a local home and an entire family was out on the street. And, the next morning you've got every single person helping with donations of clothing or money or whatever. And those are the kinds of things that I absolutely love to be a part of. And I think I miss that the most.
I told Megan before, like, I remember reaching out when, they did the switch and everything. And you were just so positive. And you just said to me, and it always stuck with me, you were like, Amy, there's life after radio. It doesn't end. There is life after radio. And that has always stuck with me.
Well, I'm so happy to hear that. I'm glad I said that to you and I didn't just say something like, hey, do you have bus fare for me or something? But you're living proof that, a lot of it comes down to just a positive attitude. And you've always been one of the most positive people I ever worked with too. And it's served you well. So, I think that goes a long way. And I think that anybody that works in radio today, if you consider it more of privilege is probably the wrong word to use because you are working really hard. But, to make sure that you don't, for the lack of using a overused cliche, put all your eggs in one basket and you're both living proof of that. So congratulations.
Thanks. As a woman, did you notice that men were treated differently in the industry?
Oh my goodness, what a loaded question that is. Yeah, in a word. Absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I have a really wonderful girlfriend that worked as well in radio in another radio station, and we often chat about that. That's a source for us with over a glass of wine for sure.
Do you know what's crazy?
Want me to go on about it or just say
Yes.
that?
Well, even
Yeah, we
thinking
do.
about back then, I know who you're talking about. And you guys had like a secret friendship because you were
Yes.
working for competitors. And so you had such like a hush hush, the people can't know we're friends, but you guys were like the nearest and dearest best friends.
It's so true. Wendy Daniels, who worked here in Ottawa at the rock station, 54 Rock, and then the Bear. We were best buds the entire time, and we were not allowed to be out in public together.
What?
Yeah, because in those days, the competition between radio stations was so insanely stiff. Because in those days, that's really the competition that you had. Today, it's all the digital media and the 7 bazillion ways that people can advertise. So, but back then, before podcasts, before Facebook, social media, blah, 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 you were really in a position of, having to be very, very, very beholden to your radio station and not to appear with someone who, unless it was a charity event or something, of course, but we were not allowed to be out in public. And when I lost my job, Wendy lost hers a year after I did. And when I lost mine, she... and we came out. I love doing that too. I love putting it all over social media. Hey, everyone. Now we can share the umpteen vacation photos that we have from the last 15 years.
Wow.
So, yeah.
It's amazing. So, are you able to talk about some of the differences you saw, minus not being able to hang out with Wendy, like working with some of the men that you did?
Well, I certainly won't name any names or anything like that. I did work with a lot of men. I think that it was pretty evident that my salary was a lot less than the man's salary. Getting back to Wendy for a second, I remember us pitching the idea of doing a radio show together, and we were told that that was insane, that there would be no appeal whatsoever to two women doing a radio show together. There had to be a man. And, when I think about how many years ago that was, in the grand scheme of things, that wasn't very long ago, really, that was the attitude. So, yeah, pretty crazy. So I always had to have a man in the morning show with me, or on the morning show with me, I should say. And so I felt that the perks were a lot more for the man. There were a lot more responsibilities on me than there was for the man, including things like when social media came along and started to become a big thing. It was just a given that that would be my job, would be the social media that would have to be done all day. And the man was able to leave the radio station at 9:00, or he would go on to record some of his endorsements that he got paid a whole lot of money for, and then go home or go and play golf or whatever it was. And then I had to stay behind and do all this social media. It was never even discussed that the man would have to do any of it. I also had to do a ton of writing for the show. There was a couple of exceptions with some of the guys that I worked with, that they did do some of the writing and things like that. But overall, any kind of role like, let's say, a 1-minute entertainment report, something like that, was always my job. And what that meant was that I never was in the really wonderful position of being able to go home from the radio show and put it out of my head all day and do whatever I wanted all day. I always had to carve out some time. I always had homework to do. So I remember one of the first perks that I gave myself when I lost my job in radio was that I never had to watch Entertainment Tonight again as long as I lived. Because I had to watch it for my homework, for writing my entertainment report. And then, God forbid, if I decided to take that day to myself, let's say I had something to do with my friends or something, and then I didn't get home until late at night, and I just had to go to bed because I had to get up at 3:30 in the morning, and I didn't do my homework. Well, that meant now I was getting up at 2:30 in the morning to do my homework. Whereas the guy that I worked with, like I said before, was just able to leave and not have to really give the radio show another moment's thought for the rest of the day. But for me, it was almost like a 24/7 thing. And I remember on Sundays too, because you'd have your weekend off if you were lucky. And then on Sundays, like around noon, I'd be like, okay, here we go. I gotta do my homework for tomorrow. So that, coupled with the pretty good sized knowledge that I was getting paid less too. Eventually, if the radio show is going well and you're getting wonderful ratings and all of that, you're less likely to complain about stuff like that. But when things started going south, it didn't take long before it was kind of like, this isn't really very fair. Did I take it to my boss and say that? As I started to get more senior in my role as a radio announcer, and I'd outlived so many people, including bosses, I started to get a little bit more cocky or whatever, and I would stand up for myself more. And sometimes it would pay off, and sometimes it didn't.
It sounds like your Amy's story. What you're saying sounds exactly like what Amy went through the last couple of years.
And I mean, I know the men that Sandy had worked with, and I had worked with a lot of them as well since we're in the same building. And I can say, like, back then too, for a morning show, a lot of the men would just scroll on in around 15 minutes before a show started while, Sandy and the women were there 2 hours in advance doing everything. And then they're up and leaving. And so coming into radio too, I kind of feel like that's what I was brought into. Like, well, that's just how radio works, but it's unfortunate. All the work that you were doing and all your homework, how did you find time for photography?
Well, it was, when you love something, you don't really feel like you have to carve the time out for it. You just do. And I loved it so much that it was, for me, a no-brainer. I couldn't wait to have that time. And one of the advantages of the morning show, too, of course, was that I had the bulk of the rest of the day to take my camera out into the wilderness. And I'm a huge animal fanatic, wildlife fanatic. And so when I first started, I didn't really care about photographing people at all. In fact, to this day, I'm one of the worst people photographers in the world. Or buildings or, cityscapes or architecture, none of that. It had to be an animal. So because animals can be challenging, I suppose that helped me hone my skills. And then eventually I did see my first wild horses in the Rocky Mountain foothills of Alberta while I was working in radio, and I was on a summer trip, and then I just knew my life just changed as soon as I saw those horses. I thought there's no other subject that I ever want to take photographs of, with some exception. Like I'm leaving next week to guide a wolf trip. Wild horses, wolves, and whales, all the W words.
Wow.
Are my favorite subjects. But overall, my passion and my purpose is photographing wild horses.
Did you ride horses before that, or was it just you saw them one day and you're like, this is it?
My goal was to ride horses, to own a horse, to maybe get into some sort of competitions with a horse. That was my entire goal. But when I was out in Alberta on a horseback riding trip, I was on a horse for about an hour, and then it was discovered that I had a hip issue. I had hip dysplasia. I was born with it. But it's kind of a sad story on its face, but it actually turns into the most amazing story, because I was on a trail ride for a week with complete strangers. I just went out on my own. I was going to live like a cowboy in the mountains all week with all these people. There was about 8 of us. And when I got on my horse, I was in so much agony that I had to get off. And then, when I got home to Ottawa and everything, I learned that I had this issue with my hips that I would never be able to ride. But because I couldn't ride, I spent the entire week in the Rocky Mountain foothills on my own with my horse on a rope. And so everyone else would go off on their trail ride, and I would just his name was Jim, and me and Jim would just hang out all day. And he was just this big giant horse, and I fell in love with him. And we got to hang out together. And one afternoon I was lying on my back in this beautiful meadow in the mountains, and Jim was munching on grass, and then the earth shook, and I jumped up. I thought there was an earthquake, and it was a herd of wild horses that ran.
Oh, wow.
And it was the most beautiful thing I'd ever seen. And the only reason I saw it was because I couldn't ride. And so then my focus on loving horses switched immediately to wild horses. So now, I love domestic horses, but I don't know too much about them. I mean, that's not my world. My whole world is wild horses. And I love that because I learned that I couldn't ride. I love that my whole world swerved so beautifully that day.
What was Jim's reaction to these horses? I'm just trying to envision all of this.
I love that question. You're the first one who's ever asked that. I love that.
I like to place myself in the situation.
That's awesome. Yeah, no, he just, his head went up. He had a mouthful of grass and his eyes went really huge. And he's like, what the heck? I wish I could do that. And he didn't try to run off with them or anything. I think he was kind of surprised. He was just as surprised as I was. In fact,
yeah,
I didn't even know that wild horses existed when this happened.
Really?
Yeah. So, I mean, it opened my entire world to learning that wild horses do exist, and they exist all over the world in really hard to get to beautiful areas. And if you can see them, you're pretty lucky to see them. But Jim was like, I think that had I let him off of his rope, I don't think he would have gone anywhere anyway, because he was an older horse. He was a draft horse. He was giant. He loved his eating, and he was really contented to stay with me that day. But I think, his eyes definitely got really big.
It's crazy because I think of you in a radio studio talking about what's going on in the world. And now I see you traveling the world and showing us what your experience. And that must be such a different life for you, but because you're kind of like a wild horse too.
Well, thanks, Amy. That's sweet of you. I think of that as quite a compliment. I'm also married to a long-haired musician, and he's often mistaken for a wild horse. I'm going to tell you one of the things that is so amazing about wild horses, and how much they have the ability to change people's lives. And in a lot of ways, they're not so much changing your life as much as they're reconnecting you to what you've lost. So I've brought people to Portugal, to Patagonia. I've been to New Zealand, Mongolia. In 3 weeks, I'll be bringing people to Tuscany, Italy, to see the wild horses of the Calvana Mountains. And people might wonder, what is the appeal? What do people want to see in wild horses? And I've seen this over and over again. So when you're a kid, you are the most free you're ever going to be. You're a free spirit. Let's say you're a 7-year-old girl and you're, running through a field and you're kicking the heads off of dandelions. That's about as free as you're going to be, because eventually the demands of society are going to get into your life, and you're going to need to go to school, then high school, then college, and then get married, university, children, all these things. So as you start to get older and older, your life just naturally becomes sort of shaped to follow the norms of society and all the responsibilities that go along with that. So when you're out with wild horses are the truest, 100% most incredible version of wild spirit that you'll ever see. And so when you're with them, you just feel like that 7-year-old kid again. And you often think about your life, and you think about it in a different way, and how you can maybe change your life to rekindle that free spirit that you had when you were a kid. And I've seen it happen over and over. I can't tell you how many people come out with me to see wild horses, get on a plane, go back home, wherever it may be, United States, the UK, Australia, and change their lives. They change their career. They realize that they're not happy in their career, and they seek their passion instead to rekindle that free spirit in them. So it's not just about being out, with wildlife, and as much as that is a beautiful thing to do, it's the way that you feel when you're with horses.
I never would have thought of that ever. That's amazing.
Do you think had you gone to Alberta on that trip and saw those wild horses while you were still working in radio, you would have left sooner?
Trading at Schwab is now powered by Ameritrade, unlocking the power of Thinkorswim, the award-winning trading platforms loaded with features that let you dive deeper into the market. Visualize your trades in a new light on Thinkorswim desktop with robust charting and analysis tools, all while you uncover new opportunities with up-to-the-minute market news and insights. Thinkorswim is available on desktop, web, and mobile to meet you where you are. It's built by the trading obsessed to help you trade brilliantly. Learn more at schwab.com/trading.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
That's a good question. I think overall, I knew that my career in radio had a shelf life. And I also loved it. So I think that for me, I felt the best thing for me to do was to have them be sort of a concurrent thing. And I think it worked out pretty well that way. So no, I knew that if I ended my career in radio on my own, um, there would be a lot of decisions that I would have to make to have done that. But overall, I just kept coming back to the fact that I still love this job. It's the entertainment industry. I mean, I get to, give trips to people and, see bands and introduce bands and interview rock stars. So as much as, there's also a lot of that story is how women are treated in the industry. And in some ways, one of the reasons they do stick around and take the treatment that is less than stellar or less than the guy took. At the end of the day, we love our jobs, Darn it.
It's crazy. It's like an abusive relationship. That's what it's felt for both of us. Yeah. It really has. So I kind of grew up knowing about Sable Island because I'm from Nova Scotia originally, and I literally grew up knowing about wild horses there. I've never been there. I've never experienced it, but I'm pretty sure I saw on your website or your Instagram that you were there taking pictures of the horses there.
Yes, and I'm a guide for Sable Island.
Oh, amazing.
And I have some trips coming up. Actually, in the fall of this year, I have 3 trips coming up. I have some space available, by the way. I work with a fantastic Halifax-based adventure company named Katuk Expeditions, and Fred Stillman, who owns that company. And we've been working together for a long time now, since 2018, I think. So I'm one of his guides. He has a number of them. And so we leave from Halifax and either by helicopter or by fixed wing plane. We go out to Sable Island. And it is spectacular. Oh my goodness. It has to be one of, if not the most beautiful places I've ever been in my life. It is pristine nature. The wild horses have a long history there. They're a source of Canadian pride from coast to coast. You should be proud as Nova Scotians to have Sable Island as yours. And also, it is considered a part of Halifax. I'm not sure if you know that or not, but it is. Okay. Yeah. So the horses are the most beautiful. They have long, long manes that go almost to the ground and their tails that go almost to the ground. There's between 350 and 550 wild horses. They've existed there since the late 1700s.
Do they know how they got on the island?
There are a number of theories, but the most widely accepted one is that in the late 1700s, there's a terrible stain on Canadian history, which is the expulsion of the Acadian people. And during that time, there was a lot of theft of property from Acadians. And there was a Boston merchant named Thomas Hancock who was a bit of an entrepreneur. And the island, Sable Island, was starting to become known as the graveyard of the Atlantic because of the number of shipwrecks. So it was clear that a life-saving station needed to be built on the island. And Thomas Hancock stole a lot of the Acadian horses and brought them to the island to help with the establishment of, moving gear and all of that to build a life-saving station. And then the horses were just left to fend for themselves. So they've pretty much been there since. And in 1961, the Prime Minister, John Diefenbaker at the time, he was bowing to some pressures from outside groups that wanted those horses removed from the island and sold for dog food. And so teachers from coast to coast, and they got their children to write letters to Prime Minister Diefenbaker to beg him to keep they more referred to them as ponies back then, to keep the Sable Island ponies safe and leave them where they belong. And John Diefenbaker he melted when he was getting letter after letter from, kids from BC to to Newfoundland written in crayon often and drawing these ponies. And he just ended up with this massive bag of letters from the kids. And so he put protection in for those horses in 1961, never to be harmed.
That's amazing.
There is a lot of horse harm that happens around the world that a lot of people don't know about. And there's unfortunately a lot that happens in Canada as well with the export of wild horses.
The export of they're actually domestic horses that are exported, and it is a horrid industry, absolutely horrid, and it's been going on for a while now. Not a long time. I think about 20 years. I mean, long enough for sure. And I hate to put it that way. It should never have happened in the first place. But it's not like it's been happening for 80 years or anything. And so these horses are big draft horses. They're purpose bred. There are some horse farms in Canada that actually breed these horses. And then they're put on airplanes and flown to Japan. They endure 28 to 32 hours without food and water. They're crammed into crates. And the reason that they're flown alive to Japan is because there's a delicacy that the elite in Japan enjoy in restaurants, and it's raw horse meat. And horse meat is a thing, unfortunately, that is consumed around the world in various places. But overall, it's frozen and shipped in, not in live form. So the most cruel industry that you can imagine for these horses is to be flown live and endure all this trauma. And most of the horses are totally traumatized when they arrive. Many of them are down, many of them die, many of them are injured by the time they get there. And then Japan takes over and fattens them up and then slaughters them for this elite delicacy. So there's a number of groups in Canada right now that have been fighting this industry, including Animal Justice and Canadian Horse Defense Council, Humane Canada, and then one of the most amazing spokespeople for this industry too, to have it shut down, has been beloved singer Jan Arden. She's been a huge ambassador for these horses and trying to get this industry shut down. So one of the things that we can all do to stop this industry is to meet with our local MP. Everyone has one. Find out who that person is, call their office and ask for a meeting. And they have to actually acknowledge you and they have to give you a meeting. A lot of people don't know that. They think that, it's just going to go nowhere or they're going to get a form letter back. And a lot of MPs will try to send a form letter back, but don't accept it. Just keep calling their office and demand a meeting and just say, I want you to do what you can to stop this industry. And I've done that with my local MP. His name is Bruce Vanjoy, who has the wonderful distinction of being the one that beat Pierre Poilievre. I live in that riding. So, I don't want to get into politics in that way right now. What I do want to say is that both parties have allowed this industry to continue. Both parties are still allowing it to continue. So whatever side that your MP is on, please engage with them and let's get this thing stopped.
It's very disappointing that Canada does that.
It is very disappointing. And all Canadians from coast to coast have to face the fact that this ugliness goes on. And I don't want to be a part of it. Obviously, it can go, why would I? Understatement of the year. What I would like to say is that I don't want to be associated with such an ugly industry as a Canadian. And because my world is horses and I have advocate friends all over the world, when they find out I'm Canadian, they almost look at me like, wow, what are you doing about it? Like, how can your country get behind this? When in fact, I believe the statistic is something like 86% of Canadians are so against this industry. And it's a small group of people that are financially benefiting from this industry.
Right.
And the amount of money that's brought in is a pittance for the small amount of people, but these people are well connected. They're connected with politicians, and they have a maybe a louder voice than someone who is just a regular Joe Q public person, because the agriculture community has the loudest, most tight, direct connections with politicians than any industry in the world. And I know that for a fact because of my work that I've been doing for a long time with wild horses and horses in general. And that's one of the things that in my lifetime I hope to see changed.
Well, you're definitely doing all the steps to do it and all the incredible work. Like, not only do you take the most incredible photos and you're a guide, but you are an advocate. And I just think you're incredible for that.
Thank you. It's I couldn't just take their photos because I would never have the conscience to just, only enjoy going out, taking their photos, going home, looking at photos and putting out photos on social media. In fact, the photos to me are the door that people hopefully will open to their stories. And a beautiful photo is going to hopefully engage people to actually read what's under the photo. And telling their stories is a lot more important to me than the photos are. But I acknowledge the power of photography to open the door to their stories.
It did. When I was looking at your photos this morning, I was like, oh my God, those are beautiful. And then I was clicking all around because of that. And I learned a little bit about this. And I was like, I didn't know that existed. I didn't know this happened. So you're right. Your photos are the gateway for education in this terrible trade.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I appreciate the opportunity to talk about it. Anytime I can raise awareness about it, it's really important to me. So thank you.
Yeah. And so you're going to go photograph wolves now? You're going on a wolf tour?
A wolf tour.
There are a subspecies of the gray wolf that lives northern Vancouver Island, and they're known as coastal wolves or sea wolves or marine wolves. I love the term sea wolf the best. The reason that they're known as sea wolves is because their diet is predominantly a marine-based diet. So these are wolves that live by the sea, Pacific Ocean, and they eat salmon, herring. They eat eggs, herring eggs. They eat carrion. Like, so, if a whale perishes and comes to shore, that's quite a lovely buffet for a family of wolves. They will take down a deer as well and eat more sort of traditional wolf fare. But overall, their diet is marine based, and they're very, very unique. There aren't a lot of them, and so I have 5 people coming with me, and we will be out in the wilderness. And we have a wonderful guy his name is Tom McPherson, and he runs a company called Sea Expeditions. And there is a Netflix documentary about the sea wolf, and I highly recommend you watch it. It's really, really a fascinating documentary about the lives of these wolves. And Tom, my partner that I'm working with on this trip, he was the guide, and he was the guy that brought all the cameraman around, and he worked on this. So I'd love for you guys to watch it.
What part of Vancouver Island is this?
It's a secret.
Oh.
It really is. And the reason it's a secret is because there are a lot of people that hunt wolves, and there's no protection for wolves in BC. So they're hunted. They're hunted greatly, and it's important to not disclose the locations. Now, I mean, if somebody wanted to do a lot of digging, they could probably find out, but I prefer to not say.
Fair enough.
Yeah, that's fair. Any kind of links or anything you want people to check out or just register or sign a petition for?
So the best thing to do is to just probably drop me an email. I do have a website, sandysharkey.com. And my email is sandy@sandysharkey.com. I just want to get my name right there as much as I can. So it's pretty easy to get a hold of me, and I can tell you what I have coming up and what openings there are, or answer any questions about any of what we talked about today. Wild horses, certainly, the wolves. I'm happy to share everything that I have.
Now, does your husband, Rob, come with you on a lot of these, or is he just like, there she goes again?
So Rob just finished, he just retired actually 2 weeks ago. He was working for Canadian Wildlife Services, the arm of the government that works with protection of critical habitat and endangered species. So that's what Rob was doing. He's a map guy. He was mapping endangered species habitat, and he just finished. So I think that means he might start joining me on some of my trips. And he's actually the perfect guy to have because he's a map guy. So, like when we're traveling together and we're always looking for, off-grid areas, he can read maps like no one's business. And so he'll know whether or not that's actually a creek bed with water in it or a road. So he's a good guy to have around. So I can sort of, maybe I'll hire him as my assistant.
Is there something nice, though, just going out by yourself, meeting strangers, and just being one with nature?
It's the best. It's the absolute best. I am a completely different person when I'm in the wild, especially when I'm with wild horses, as I was saying earlier. I think that one of the things moving forward, I hope a lot of people parents especially, start to pay attention to is the disconnect that the next generations are starting to have with nature. And if we lose our connection to nature, I think we lose everything. So I think it's really important to, if you're a parent, to make sure that your kids have some time in nature, hopefully every week, once a week, twice a week, 3 times a week. I remember speaking to a large group of kids just about 4 years ago, I think it was. And I was talking to them about horses and wolves and all kinds of wildlife and photography. And they were probably 10, 11 years old. And there was about 30 of them. And they were all sitting cross-legged on the floor. And I was showing them some photos. And then I was asking them, in the area that I was in, talking to them, I said, there's a beautiful walking trail. It's about 5 minutes from here. And I said, I've gone on that trail so many times that almost every time I've gone on that trail, I've seen a deer. So how many of you have seen deer on that trail? And nobody put up their hand. And then I asked them, how many of you have been on that trail? And I think 2 of them put up their hand. And it actually blew me away. And I thought, wow, they live right here. They have a 5-minute walk to go into that forest. So that scared me. It scared me a lot. The fact that not one of these kids had ever even seen a deer.
Wow.
So, those are the kinds of things that I feel that we should, I think that our government should probably do some campaigns about things like that. We should get into more of the benefits of nature and connection with nature, reconnecting with nature. I think that would be a lovely way to spend our taxpayer dollars.
It's crazy because coming from Montreal growing up, I was like, I couldn't tell you if I ever saw a deer either. But now I live in the country in Nova Scotia where there's just bears walking around and we have ducks. And I've never felt more grounded. I love going out and I'm on the lake and just all the nature and everything and the stars at night. And you really do feel when you're closer to the earth and the ground, you just do feel more connected and that makes you happier.
I couldn't agree more. Yeah. It's almost a secret in some ways that you don't have to spend a lot of money on a lot of wellness things because the wellness is out there waiting for you and it's free. You just have to go out into it, right?
So true.
This has been amazing. Thank you so much. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
I'm thrilled. I'm thrilled to have had the opportunity to chat with you guys. I'm thrilled that, we got to talk a bit about radio and I love that it still exists. Let's put it that way. I mean, it's so different from when I was there and you guys are younger than me, a lot younger than I am. But when people ask me about my career in radio, what I say to them is how fortunate I was because I worked in the same era as WKRP in Cincinnati. That's the radio that I do. So, but yeah, I hope that anyone listening today does sort of take away that there's more to life than your career even, and hopefully that you will find your passion. And once you find your passion and you stick with it, you're going to be okay for the rest of your life.
I remember we didn't see you for 2 weeks when Blues Fest came. You got a hotel right next to Blues Fest. You had your pogos, and that was it. Sandy just lived at Lansdowne.
Exactly. Like I said earlier that I can't take photos of people. The only people that I can photograph are musicians. And the reason is because they are the closest to wild horsing.
Yeah. Always moving around.
Yep. Thanks so much. I really appreciate Amy and Megan. I appreciate your time. And thanks for inviting me on your show.
Thank you so much, Sandy. It was great.
You can't reason with the sun. Trust us, we've tried. This summer, it's time to put that angry ball of fire on mute. Columbia's OmniShade technology is engineered to protect you from the sun's harsh rays that can burn and damage your skin. The sun is relentless, but so is our gear. Level up your summer at Columbia.com to spend more time outside and less time slathering on aloe lotion. You're welcome. Columbia, engineered for whatever.